Hi everybody, I am Zehra and today I'm going to talk about the chapter 3rd of the linguistic structure of modern English. And here is my content. Firstly, we're going to talk about phonemes and phonemic rules and then phonological processes and phonotactics and suprasegmental features. And finally, we're going to talk about syllable structure. Let's begin with phonemes. We can divide into two parts, a segment and suprasegment. In segment part, we are going to talk about phonemes, phonemes and allophones, and the supra-segment part, we are going to talk about pitch, tone, intonation, and stress. Let's begin with phonemes. A phoneme is a distinct or a constructive sound in a language. We see how the phonemes of a language are determined by means of what are called minimal pairs. And a minimal pair is a set of different words consisting of all the same sounds except for one. The one sound which constructs in then determined to be a phoneme since it makes a difference in meaning. For example, pet, said, cat, met, pet. When it comes to allophones, an allophone is a predictable variant of a phoneme. To take a real example from English, consider the aspirated th and the non-aspirated t. They are phonetically very similar but not identical. We can say that allophones are positional variants which are in complementary distribution, meaning that where one occurs, the other does not. They never occur in the same environment, always in different environments. When it comes to phonemic rules part, the allophones of phoneme are predictable and hence can be stated in terms of phonemic rule. In order to discuss phonemic rules, we must now expand this list as follows. The symbol between the slashes X represent the phoneme, while the symbols in square brackets represent allophones. Get and Z, the arrow means is released as or has the allophones. Thus, this rule reads the phoneme X has the allophones Y and Z. Furthermore, the slash means in the environment following the slash, the phonetic environment in which the allophone is found is stated. The environment of the last phonetic allophone is always stated as elsewhere, meaning all other environments. The elsewhere allophone is the one with the widest distribution, the one found in the greatest variety of environments. And there is meaning and their abbreviation. It's important to understand the meaning with abbreviations. And here is an example. Here is a rule. This rule says that H is articulated as a voiceless approximant that takes on characteristic of the vowel it precedes. And when it comes to phonological processes, all consonants are labellized before rounded vowels, and here is the rule. And liquids and nasals have a syllabic function following a consonant word finally. For example, button. And alveolar sounds are dentalized before a dental. For example, well. And voiceless stops are aspirated word or syllable initially before a stressed vowel. For example, peace and time. And alveolar obstruents become alveopalatal obstruents before G in the following syllable. And there is the rule. This process, commonly referred to as palatalization, is quite common word internally. Example of these rules include posture, digestion, Christian, individual, educate, soldier, passion, anxious, mission, occasion, leisure, vision, and fusion. When it comes to phonotactics, phonotactics are the constraints on position and sequences of sound in a language. When discussing the possible position of sound in a language, we need to refer to word initial, medial, and final position, as well as the other positions such as syllable initial. This character is never word initial. It is the word medially only after a stressed vowel, as in anger. And this character is very restricted word initially and is common word medially and fairly rare word finally. And these are always syllable initial before a stress vowel, as in heat, yes, and wet. And these occur syllable finally only as part of diphthong. And this character is word initial only in pronouns, adverbs, prepositions, demonstratives, and the definite article, never in nouns, verbs, and adjectives. Otherwise, it occurs freely word medially and word finally. And when discussing the possible sequences or combination of sound in a language, we are primarily concerned with the combination of consonants called consonant clusters, which may begin or end a syllable. Unlike many other languages of the world, English rather freely allows for consonant clustering. In fact, it allows up to 3 consonants in an initial cluster and up to 4 consonants in a final cluster configuration. Initial consonant cluster, glow and surprise, and final consonant cluster are bird, ants, and words. When it comes to suprasegmental features are those articulated features which are superimposed over more than one segment, and they include stress and intonation. Let's have a look them deeply. Every word spoken in isolation had at least one stress syllable. In articulate terms, stress involves a rise in air pressure and increase in the activity of respiratory muscles forces more air out of the lungs during the articulation of particular syllable. And there are some features about stress. The first feature is stress can distinguish a word from a phrase. For example, walk out and walk out, hot dog and hot dog. The second feature is the vowel in the second half of compound noun is reduced. For example, foreman, policeman, dressman, Finland, England, Highland, helpful, thoughtful, rightful, and somebody, anybody, nobody. And the third feature is reduction of other forms may likely be predictable, as in the cases of a, d, to, which are reduced when they occur before a word beginning with a consonant. For example, a cup, an apple, the man, the apple, to jail, to university. And the last feature is, in general, stress vowels within a word are generally full, while unstressed vowels may or may not be reduced to or another unstressed vowel. For example, explain, explanation, emphatic, emphasize. And when it comes to intonation, like stress, intonation is a meaningful suprasegmental feature of speech. Intonation refers to patterns of pitch variation in a sentence. It does not refer to the discrete pitch of different vowels to pitch accent. And the intonation is represented in a gross fashion in writing by punctuation marks. And intonation patterns may also indicate the attitude or relation of the speaker to the hearer, as well as various contextual features. And its meaning lies in the province of syntax and pragmatics. Intonation patterns differ quite substantially among different dialects of English, for example, between British and American or American and Canadian English. And in describing intonation, we generally identify 4 different levels of pitch, which can refer to as extra high, high, middle, and low. Within a utterance, the pitch tends to alternate between low and high. The extra high level is reserved for expressing a strong emotion such as surprise, enthusiasm, or disbelief. It's also the pitch level that signals constructive or emphatic stress. For example, long falling agreement for expresses finality, conclusion, and affirmation, and short falling is for express an attenuated or qualified, and long rising for expresses questioning and a lack of finality, and short rising for expresses some degree of reservation or function as a signal. And finally, when it comes to syllable structure, the syllables represent a level of structure intuitively recognized by speaker of the language. It figures importantly in the rhythm and prosody of the language. As noted earlier, a syllable consists obligatorily of a vowel. This is the acoustic peak or nucleus of the syllable and potentially carries stress. A syllable may optionally begin with 1 to 3 consonant, the onset of the syllable, and may close with the 1 to 4 consonant, the coda of the syllable. And the nucleus and coda together form the rhyme. And here's a picture to understand more clearly. And here is a basic and simple example for you. For example, if we elaborate cat, the first consonant is onset, and the vowel A is nucleus, and T is consonant, and so is coda. And when we elaborate G is consonant, so is onset, and I and A is vowel, so they are nucleus, and N and T is consonant, so they are coda. And when we elaborate about, we divide about as about. So A is vowel, so it's nucleus. B is the first consonant, so it's onset. O and U is nucleus because of their vowel, and the last T is consonant, so it's coda. And when we elaborate rigid, it divided as rigid. So the first consonant is coda, onset, and I is vowel, so it's nucleus. G is the onset because it's consonant. I is vowel, so it's nucleus, and the last B is consonant, so it's coda. And emblem, we divided it as we see on the screen. A is vowel, so it's nucleus. M is coda. B and L is onset. E is nucleus, and M is coda. And that was my presentation. Thank you everyone for listening.